Good evening. And who steals the mail from your mailbox but pays off that electricity bill with the money we siphon from your bank account? It's us, the Thursday Night Podcast, and our technological difficulties. That's at least how I get it done. It's Thursday night. It's us. It's the boys, the three handsomest ones of American Scouser TV. But before all the jolly japery, etc., happens, just for me as a nostalgist, I think just has to be said, like a commiserations to the entire Liverpool family. The past of Larry Lloyd, one of Shank's like prime boys when he started buying the big name players, a legend for Liverpool in the late 60s, mid-late 60s, and a legend for Nottingham Forest afterwards, and one of the most cultured defenders in English football at the time. And it's getting to that point where all those people that we looked at, well, certainly I looked at throughout the years in television, are probably going to be passing and shuffling off this mortal coil. But commiserations from all of us and condolences, American Scouser TV, to all of us at Liverpool and the Larry Lloyd family. But we have a show to do tonight, and we have it's been an international week. I just went into hibernation. It's not a good thing to be having to deal with international breaks, but we have some things to talk about that happened during it. So we're joined by Brian, as always, and Trevor. Brian, how are you?
Still buffering.
Still buffering. You're the most buff one of all of us. Trevor, how are you?
Significantly less buffering.
Alan's spelling is buffering. Good evening to Alan there, and good evening to Sir Z, who is got it all perfect. He's got it going on with greeting. And Alan wants to open the curtains and see all the plants and trees in your garden. What happened to the plants today, Trevor? There we go. Like magic.
Now.
Like magic.
Me and my fake forest.
Your fake forest. And it is an impressive amount
my
of
next
foliage.
I have no musical ability whatsoever, so
there you go. You could be in a boy band because they didn't have any either. So here is what we are going to chat about tonight. We have good news about Andrew Robertson, our esteemed and erstwhile left back. We'll talk a tiny bit about we all want to fulfill our dreams at Anfield, and one man managed to get it at the Liverpool Legends game. And then we'll talk about the apparent news that Xabi Alonso is not going to be the next Liverpool manager. Who knows what's going to happen, but we'll talk about repercussions if that rumor is true. And then we'll look ahead to the game this weekend at home to Brighton at Anfield. We get everything back on track. So the first thing is Andrew Robertson injured in the Scotland game, and it looked like a bad one, but apparently only out for a few days rather than a few weeks. Brian, that's good news for us. It could have been worse, but we kind of do need Robertson out for the run-in for the season, don't we?
That's great news. I mean, we can just shift Gomez right over there and leave Bradley right on the right-hand side, and it's like business like normal. So I still, to me, it's still going to be that sub to me. I think that Gomez right there is definitely earns the right to go there to a starting position at the moment.
Trevor, Tsimikas is also available. Gomez hasn't done a bad job there at all, but Andrew Robertson gives us everything our Klopp left fullback system needs, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's something that kind of just that whole side of the pitch is built around being able to work off of his overlaps and his crosses, and the whatever person gets put into the midfield on that side knows that they always have that safety valve with him, whether it be going forward or passing it back to kind of swing the ball across the field. And this is not to say that Gomez or Tsimikas aren't guys that can kind of do yeoman's work in that position, but Robertson just gives so much more dynamism, I think, in that role. And he's a guy that will be fearless in getting forward, but also doing enough to get back when when it's necessary. I think if he's ready to go after the Brighton match, I don't really think this is going to be anything to worry about, because all right, he may miss this weekend, and they're saying that this is probably the only thing that he's going to miss. If that is truly the case, then I'm kind of just nonplussed about it. I really don't. I don't want to kind of make a story that's not there. But if for some reason there is a unforeseen setback, I do think that could be a significant hindrance to our title challenge.
Brian, it certainly is true that Tsimikas and Gomez, they give us enough, maybe even a little bit more than enough sometimes, but Andy Robertson consistently gives us extra, doesn't he, down that left side? And that's why he's been so important for the last however amount of years that I can't remember how many years he's been with us at this point. It doesn't seem a lot because he looks like he's still 22, but he's actually 40. But he basically just gives us the X factor at left back, doesn't he?
I just hope that we're lucky to keep on with him, because I think fitness wise, right there, I think he's still in great shape. I mean, he still makes great runs, and I think that him and I think he's got a pretty good relationship already established with Diaz on that left hand side now. So, and I mean, I've seen a lot more syncing up. One of the things I said early in the season, right there, they didn't seem like they were on par with each other. It seemed like they've actually kind of figured each other out. Kind of like he did with Mane. And I think that we, I mean, the longer we can keep him in a decent shape, I think the better we are. And then also, if you think about it, I think having him as a senior person to the side, you have Chambers coming up. You have a couple other younger left backs that there, that you can go there that he can kind of put underneath his wing right there, and use them to have as a learning moment, as a teaching moment. But yeah, I mean, I really think that keeping him is pretty essential for us at the moment, right there. I mean, he offers a lot for our side.
Trevor, we know Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to be back soon enough, but Conor Bradley, he's doing two yeoman's works out there, but he's doing two yeoman's works out there on the right. And almost will be a similar player, I think, to how Andy Robertson plays in terms of that dynamism. With the two of them as the fullbacks, it gives us a sort of wide balance that we lack when Gomez is on one side or Trent is on the other side. We need to be making sure we're winning games. Right now, do those two offer us the best two options we have at the club for left back and right back?
I think Bradley is a guy that, we kind of have to take advantage of the form he's in. And even probably at his lowest points during this run, he's at least my big thing with him is it's just consistent effort. And a lot of especially on this channel, people will crap on Trent for effort. It has nothing to do with his talent. It's nothing to do about positional awareness. A lot of times, that most of the flack that comes Trent's way is effort, where he is just too many times just kind of lollygagging back on a play, or he makes a pass and it will get knocked down, and it's like, oh, that was beautiful, but then something freak happens, and he's still sitting there admiring his pass like he just tried to hit a 400-foot home run, but it got caught at the fence, and he did a bat flip and everything. I'm sorry for all the baseball references to Muchin. I know that you're going to see this down the road, and we're just, I'm going to get a demerit. But either way, it's one of those things where Bradley kind of just gives you the best of both worlds. He's not, in terms of just overall talent and what he brings to the table, he's not the best at either discipline, attacking or defending. But he brings enough in both where you don't kind of look at his faults, because the effort's there, and there's no time where you're like, oh God, this kid is out of his depth. That's a big thing, especially with youngsters, where a kid looks lost. And the same thing goes with Kwanzaa a lot of times, where they'll make a mistake, and you'll see it a lot with young kids where they just make a mistake, and then just all the veterans are yelling at them, and their heads down, and it spirals. Bradley, anytime he like screws up and like has a bad just position and people get by him, he'll run it out, and if it leads to him getting the ball back, that's great. But even if he doesn't get the ball back, the fact that he's like not out of the frame when somebody's attacking, just especially like Virgil in the middle is going to be able to like trust the kid, going like, okay, we may be able to cheat up a little bit more sometimes because we know this kid is going to bust a gut to get back if he screws up. And I think Robertson and Bradley on either side are the two guys that are going to do that the most for you. So when Trent comes back, I think he's just going to get inserted just because that's the way things are. But to slowly roundabout back to your question, I think in terms of putting the best team out there to go win down this home stretch, I think Bradley and Robertson in either fullback position is probably the way to go.
Brian, my brain is not working this week at all. I smashed my own kneecap off my own desk and worked several times, one after the other. But if I remember correctly, our next league game after this is United. Correct me if I'm wrong, either of you. But having Robertson back for a game, no disrespect to Joe Gomez, but Robertson offers a threat. Do you think against United that we really, really need, given the 0-0 in the Anfield leg and then the loss in the FA Cup? We really need as many threats as possible on the field in this league game if we want to be up there with the last two games to go with a chance of winning the league.
It does right there, but it also goes there and actually gives us a whole bit of defensive stability too against like Rashford and running at us also at the same time. So, I mean, Gomez offers a whole defensive option that that holds players in too. So it's hard to say right there what you want to go with. I mean, ideally, Trent and Robertson. I mean, I think that would be your ideal choice. I know that the 7th right there, I think, is Trent's due back date. So I know Bradley's fulfilled that role perfectly with her, but to me, it's these our starting left back and right back are Trent and Andy, and so they have to be in that spot right there against you. I mean, so Gomez right there. I mean, I can maybe give Gomez a spot right there to go back right side Virgil if Kanate's not healthy, but I mean, he's kind of the odd man out in a way, sadly. I mean, I think that he's given his all off the season right there, and has been wherever we put him at, he's played well, but in the long run right there, he's not technically our starting 11. I mean, our first team starting 11. I mean, so you have to kind of like he's like the 12th man to us at the moment. That's where he's at, and so you can't. We have to go there. We can't go there to have him in there when you have better options.
Let's move on from that game a little bit.
And Robertson's a better option.
I think. I think we're all happy that Robertson's not going to be missing too much, but we don't want to dwell too much on the Robertson conundrum. I think we're just happy that something's working for us on the injury front. But whilst there was an international break, there was also a Liverpool Legends game, and I think we say this a lot, like we're patting ourselves on the back, but I can't think of any other club that would have a game like that and that would bring in a guest manager just because you asked that you regretted that you could never manage Liverpool. But we saw Sven-Göran Eriksson. There he is with some guy who manages in Saudi Arabia. Now it's Steven Gerrard. I'd probably, along with Gerard Houllier, a manager who pushed Steven Gerrard to the forefront of international consciousness when with his England selections. But Sven-Göran Eriksson, tragically, with an incurable cancer, I believe, and almost a bucket list thing to do something with Liverpool. A regret that you didn't take a chance or wasn't given a chance in the past. It sounds like we were talking to him at one point. But he got to manage the Liverpool Legends game. So 2 questions, Trevor. Number 1, can you think of another club that would have done something so generous and without ego for somebody like Sven-Göran Eriksson? And number 2, when do you think he was going to be the Liverpool manager that he was getting interviewed for? Because I can only think of maybe replacing Kenny Dalglish or Rafa Benitez, possibly Gerard Houllier, around about that time. But let's go with question 1 first. Do you think there's any other club that would have done what we did?
Probably not in England. I'd say in terms of like benevolence, I think you would have to kind of go off the old island, so to speak, to find somebody that would do that. And you'd probably be maybe looking at the other side of the coin, like Ajax might do that, because they have so many people that are weaved in their pipeline that they would kind of find a way to get something like that over the line. There's a couple of German clubs where I wouldn't be super surprised if there was something like that in terms of a guest managerialship into, is that even a word? Whatever. In the Legends game. But to answer your second question, yeah, the only thing I could think of is probably when there's like the mess with like the Roy Hodgson appointment. And even then, I would have to go look to see where Eriksson was in terms of his career at that point, what team he was attached to, and if that would have even lined up. Because all I remember, because that was kind of a time where I wasn't like fully just all in engaged with everything, and kind of just nose to the grindstone with following all of the rumor mills and all that. But yeah, that's the only kind of time that I think would line up, because there was just so much disarray, and it seemed that Hodgson was a guy that they're just going, well, we got to have somebody. We can't just throw out just a block of wood, even though probably for some of those games, a block of wood would have put out better lineups than old Woy did. Don't want to just kind of kick a guy while he's down, but that's kind of where I'm at with that timeline in terms of the potential for Eriksson having a pipeline into the club.
Brian, it looks to me like he was at Mexico or the Ivory Coast around the time that Roy Hodgson got appointed. So there was definitely scope for Sven-Göran Eriksson to be the Liverpool manager then. But my question to you is, would he have been a good Liverpool manager, especially at that point in time?
Speechless. In my opinion, right there, I liked Sven. I liked when he was in England. I thought he kind of got kind of a raw deal, with how he got let go and all that. I mean, I thought he was a decent manager. I mean, honestly, I think he would have been a good job. He'd probably been better. I mean, I think he would have been better than Rafa at the end. I mean, I think that Rafa at the end, grinding results out right there, turning into like a very negative football right there. I think a lot of people envisioned the Rafa in 2005 to 2008 But that Rafa toward the end right there was pretty rough to watch. I mean, it was some pretty bad football toward the end. It was some grinding out results. I mean, that happened right there. I think that Swin would have would at least had a little bit more energy in the side. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that Swin would have been a decent manager for us.
Trevor, let's say, coming up to the end of Klopp's reign, would a younger, obviously younger, but a young prime era Sven-Göran Eriksson be a type of manager that could take over a team like this, given that he had a lot of like modern, almost like Carlo Ancelotti, a lot of modern managerial strategies in terms of involving players and treating them like grown-ups and treating them like the professionals that they are, and consulting them about things. Or is this team a little bit too young in the tooth and a little bit raw and a little bit green, that they probably need more of a Klopp type who is, who's going to set a course forward and say, no, not this, but this, not that, but this, until they mature?
I think there's enough in terms of veteran leadership on this team where the way he ran things could have worked. Because, yeah, I agree that this is something where you leave a lot to chance if you're kind of just letting the youngsters on this team kind of freeform jazz their play. It may not turn out the best, but if you come in and have like full faith in Virgil to like set up the defense and for like Mo to kind of be that guiding light in the attack, and then you just kind of let the midfield run itself, maybe Endo being just captain everywhere he's been, be that guy that kind of sorts everybody in that front. It wouldn't be catastrophic, I think. I don't think it would be something where he would be lost. Because there's a lot of managers that their styles go places, and for however talented they are, they just look lost. And you got to kind of just rely on
Phil Neville.
Well, I think his general demeanor is just lost. Or he sat on a whoopee cushion. That's like what his face always looks like, as if he just sat on a whoopee cushion and just either doesn't know how to react or has never been pranked before and is just eternally angry about it.
I think it's more that it's more that he sat on a whoopee cushion that he put down and then forgot about it.
Yeah. I think that tracks, where he thought he was going to like get a rise out of everybody and be like, look at this, what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit on this and everybody is going to absolutely erupt with laughter. And then they just look at him like, yo, Phil, did you shit yourself? And then he just has to like get just indignant about it. And then
he'll say, yes, I did, but
the
also
cycle
there's
continues.
A cushion.
Oh, geez.
But before we get too lost down the rabbit hole of fart noises, in terms of Brian, the qualities of the manager, we can kind of segue nicely, I think, into it. The next part, which is Xabi Alonso apparently is not going to be the Liverpool manager. If we take that on face value, Brian, and not some sort of rope-a-dope shell game, and then he actually he shows up at Anfield in June, takes off his t-shirt with new Liverpool manager on it, and makes everybody happy. We discussed this before we went on air, but I think it's a valid thing to say. Is that sort of almost a relief for us as Liverpool fans, given the shortness of his managerial career and the sudden rise to what we would assume is going to be a success in the Bundesliga? We would like to think that would continue, but I'm sure every Chelsea fan thought the same of Roberto Di Matteo as well when he won the Champions League. Are we maybe at this point in his career having a bit of a lucky escape, if that's true?
Yes, I think we are. I think we much weight upon prior, that I feel that way. I feel like we put with all this, like we did the whole Steven Gerrard thing. We did the whole it's like to these guys who are just out of the game like 2-3 years, and all of a sudden they're okay. They did such a great job being a player. They did this at Real Madrid. They did this at Bayern Munich. They did this right here, and all of a sudden next thing you know, it's like they're going to be a great manager. I said like last week, Xabi Alonso is a young manager. He's only had Real Sociedad, Bayer Leverkusen. That's it. Yeah, he studied underneath the people, but he's still a young manager. This may have been a bridge too far for him, and I don't want to. I'm okay with this. I'm perfectly fine with this.
So, Trevor, if this is the case indeed that he is not going to be the Liverpool manager, and it sounds like he's not going to be the Real Madrid manager either, so almost like he's figured out, and to his credit, that I'm not ready for these clubs yet. I could probably do it another year or two here at Leverkusen. If that's the case, who's on the shortlist now? It can't. I mean, stylistically, a De Zerbi or a Frank probably works with the group of players we have. But we have to be consistent for people like me who weren't too impressed with the idea of Xabi Alonso based off of one season in the Bundesliga. We need somebody who's better than Xabi Alonso, and somebody by default will be better than De Zerbi and better than Frank in terms of record and consistency and proof of concept. So who is now on that list? Is it literally now down to Amorim, or it's not going to be Jose Mourinho, no matter how much the English media might try and poke that stick there, poke that bear. It's not going to be him. But is there a manager like him out there outside of Amorim who has youth on his side, who has success on his side, and who has ideas that would match the players we have?
Yeah, he seems to be the one that kind of just keeps popping up in all conversations, despite the fact that I don't know what the buyout would be in any form like that. Usually, these
it's Portugal. It's probably 2 donkeys and 20 euros.
But they usually, now that they're getting poached so regularly, they kind of have these kind of poison pills in at least the managerial contracts more than anything, because they're going, all right, if this guy wins the league or gets to like the round of 16 of the Champions League or Europa League, some big team is going to come calling and we're going to be shit out of luck. So we're just going to make it so they have to pay us stupid money and put some – there's some weird clause where they end up owing money to a library in Lisbon or some shit like that. It's just something just completely off the wall. But in terms of the two options in the league right now, De Zerbi and Frank, I think, and we've talked about this plenty of times, I think Frank is the guy that I would take of the two, just because I've seen him deal with adversity better. This whole Ivan Toney saga, being able to just kind of like patchwork the team. Yeah, they've had their lows. Their defense has been brutal at times, but they've stayed afloat and they've never really been like relegation fodder. Whereas Brighton, I think Europe this year has been kind of almost a bridge too far for them. They keep sort of just advancing by the skin of their teeth, but the Thursday to Sunday thing just absolutely kicks their ass every time. And the fact that De Zerbi just and hey, maybe this is a good parallel. just decides to empty out the excuse book every time his team plays crap after a European night, which as much as we love Jurgen, he is known for with a scheduling conflict, just absolutely digging into the tumbler of excuses to pull out whatever ones this week. Oh, the grass was too long. Oh, the referees were such and such. But yeah, I think De Zerbi is a guy that you're basically playing the same song, but from like a shittier cover band. Whereas at least Frank, you'd be getting different music. In Amarim, you're just listening to it in a different language.
Brian, here's my question to you. Regardless of who it is, if this team's already won a cup, if we go on to win the league, and if we also go on to win the Europa as well, so a good treble season of success with this group of players who are not coming to the end of their cycle, and in fact are probably just beginning it, does the next manager, regardless of who they are, have the pressure to win something in their fourth season, or at least get to the finals of things in their fourth season and get close to the league? Or is it, as Kazi said a while ago, a case where we have to give them time? And if so, how much? Because if you're handed off a team that's just won things, you really don't have much wiggle room, do you, going forward?
I mean, I think that you still have to mold the team and one of the manager how he feels that he needs to play them. So, I mean, I still thought about that right there, but I think that we do have some players right there that Edwards is going to rotate. We have one or two big names right here that are probably not going to be here after in this summer. I mean, and things that we're all going to be in a state of shock about. But I think that we have enough youth in the side right there that like Kazi said, they need to have a little bit of time right there to build where they're at. If we go off a treble season right there, I think we have enough where we have that one step of grade with their like the 27, 28-year-olds. Then we have another step that's right around the 24, 25, and then we have another group right there that's up and coming from the U21s that can come there and start building in and make it to a good side. The problem right there is the 30-year-olds. I mean, that's your problem. I mean, where you have Robertson, you have Mo. I mean, I think that as much as I want to keep both of them, I don't. And also Van Dijk. I forgot about Van Dijk. So you have three players right there in the plus 30s right there who still have a potential to make a profit off of, and you maybe have 2 seasons left of all of them. Right? I mean, because again, Mo, as brilliant as he is in the English game, is he going to last another 2-3 seasons? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that could be pretty rough. I mean, Van Dijk right there has been great this season right there, but what's a guarantee that next season right there we're going to see Van Dijk play this form? Robertson right there, at the amount of runs that he's done on his body and stuff like that in the past couple of years, that takes a toll on somebody right there. And if we have players that we can go there and backfill them, to move and to say, okay, put another 24, 25 who had a year old in, you have to kind of do that. I mean, the Liverpool won't did that. They didn't hang on to players forever. They moved people on. I mean, it's for the better of the game. I mean, it happened. I mean, look at Kevin Keegan. We moved Kevin Keegan on right there. Almost said he was still fairly on the prime of his career. We moved him on. I mean, and it's because it was the right thing to do at the point, So I think that we have the tools to go there to continue to succeed. I mean, we're easily still going to be if we get rid of even if Mo goes, I still think that we are a top 5 side. I think Jota's still there, and you have good forwards there in line. If Van Dijk stays there, if we get a good defender to come back into place, then I think that we can back and refill. Left back right there, I mean, I don't have as much faith in Simicast as some people do, and so that would be the area right there. Either you make Gomez as a permanent left back, or we got to go shopping. And I think that we're going to want to go shopping and fill in some of these roles out. And then another player to throw in there is Becker. Are we going to keep Becker? I mean, is that a in the financial eyes? Is it smart to keep Becker right there when you have Kelleher, who's 25 and seems to be filling the role at the moment? I mean, it's all going to be whatever Edwards in his mind thinks about, because he's a Billy Bean type of kid. Go there, want to go and change and tweak with finances, tweak with funds, and see and make the smart deal.
Macka, you're muted. Macka, you're muted.
I knew something was going to go wrong there. So here's my question. Alan, it's me and B, Smith and Lizzie, just the three of us living here in this cell. They used to give me roses as well. That's an in-joke for people from that side of the pond. The question is, Sparky Parky says he'd like the club to persuade Pep Linders to step up and not go to Ajax, as seems to be the rumour going around. Linders is sort of in the same boat as Alonso in terms of not having a track record as a manager, but what he lacks in, gravity, say, in terms of like a playing career or a managerial career, he brings to the table, I would say, in continuity, in that it would almost be a Shanks to Paisley kind of thing. He knows the system inside out. Is that a viable option, or am I completely off my rocker and we really do need a strong personality to mold this team that's not currently at the club?
No, I would be on board with Linders being the successor, because it's as much as it would be like the sexy pick to go get a guy that has won a bunch of stuff and do all this. I think in today's game, with how much you have to kind of cater to players, having that just relatability to a guy that you've dealt with on a daily basis for the better part of a decade is huge. And he's proved to be a more than competent tactician. If you watch any of the videos that Liverpool put out with him kind of describing how they set up against certain teams and everything, it's thorough. It is just complete. He is a guy that is not, I don't think he'd be overwhelmed by the task of stepping up. It's just whether or not he wants to be the guy. If he wants to just, Jurgen's gone and now he's coming in and then he has to kind of just assume all those responsibilities. Maybe there's certain guys that always thrive more as second bananas. And that's there's no shame in that. But you would have to like go there and get a true sense from him first. Go, are you saying this because you don't want to be here because Jurgen's not? Or are you saying that you're going to take off and do all these other things because you're not up to the task? Be truthful with yourself and truthful to the hierarchy at the club, where if we could kind of keep this in-house and let you ascend to the throne per se, that I would totally be on board with that. But it has to be something where, one, he wants to, because and I just spelled it out, he's more than capable enough, I think, to kind of keep the messaging the same with the players. That they know that they're not going to be asked to do anything radically different in terms of how they set up. And there's just kind of that rapport where they're not going to get some guy that's going to come in and wants to swing his dick and be like, oh, now you over here, you're just resting on your laurels and all that shit, and then kind of just make waves unnecessarily. He knows what he has, and yeah, there's going to be guys that get moved on. There's going to be so on and so forth. That's just the life cycle of a football club. But it more than anything comes down to his willingness to want to do it, his desire to take over. And if they feel any trepidation from him at all, just don't even broach the subject any further, because you got to have a guy. If you're going to go with somebody unproven, they have to have at least that confidence in themselves and that desire, or it's going to absolutely fall apart.
So let's move on from somebody who's been auditioning possibly for the job literally every day at the club to somebody who may be auditioning this weekend. It is Brighton against Liverpool at Anfield. Brian, how badly do we need to win this game?
Extremely badly. I mean, if that's a way to say it right there, it's a must-win match for us. I think right now we're at the point where I think every match that we play is must-win at the moment. I mean, for us to come to take advantage, I think that the loss to Arsenal and the draw to City right there put us at the point where we basically have to win every match out. I mean, it's for us to go there and hit top first place, and then hope that we have drop points from both those sides along the way. I mean, obviously we're gonna have a drop point from Arsenal and City this weekend, but we have to go there and make sure we have to take it's a must-win game. Like Sparky said, it's a must-win game. We have to win all out. I don't see any match right now in the league that we cannot afford to either draw or lose at the moment right there to maintain momentum with either City or Arsenal. Whoever wins the match this weekend.
Trevor, does the fact that De Zerbi is in the conversation to be the next Liverpool manager, at least in the media, does it add some extra spice to the game from his point of view? Is he going to be working a little bit harder to try and get a result?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those instances where it's a guy that thinks that he should be this is kind of like his informal audition for the role, and I don't necessarily think that it's going to be something where they play different, where they kind of just break who they are to try to go get a result in a different fashion. I don't think he's that petulant or that impulsive of a manager that he's just going to go, well, everybody's going to be watching today and everybody's talking about me taking over. So if we go and just put on a show, that I think if they try to do that for as many times they've given Liverpool trouble, I think if they try to kind of just go high flying, it will backfire on him incredibly badly. And from our perspective, hey, maybe just float it out in the media a bunch where, like, yo, if you if you want this, just see what you can do. Come try to score 5 goals. And then you just get absolutely pumped. I want there to be a brazenness about Brighton this weekend, because they're short. I believe both Matoma and Solly March are going to be injured, and João Pedro, who is probably their most creative guy otherwise, is basically playing on one leg. So they're a team that, in just the general sense of things, is probably going to want to set up a bit more defensive. But if the narrative is they have to go be a spoiler, and this is kind of how he's going to cement himself as the top candidate, please, with that Franken attack, please try and just watch as you're down 3-0 in 25 minutes, and then I get to go back to bed, and it'll be great.
Brian, before we wrap it all up, who do you think the key players for us will be, and what would your score prediction be? I think it's like a 9 o'clock game or something like that. Is it 10? Yeah, it's like a 3 o'clock game over there, but they haven't changed the clocks.
It's 9 o'clock on Sunday.
Yeah, for us on the East Coast at least. But Brian, who's going to be the key players, the 2 or 3 key players, and what do you think the score will be?
For me, it's the midfield. I think McAllister right there, coming back to play his former club right there, is going to be one of the key players. I think that I'm calling for a 3-0. I first thought 3-1 right there as a special on Sunday, but I'm going for 3-0. I think that not having Matoma in their side right there gives us a lot more breathing space. So, yeah, 3-0.
Trevor, saying to you, who do you think the 2 or 3 key players will be, and what is the score line for you?
I really hope that it's a game that gets out of hand early, but I just don't have the faith to say as such. So I'm going to go for a 2-1, but we're going to score 2 early, and then it's going to be that ever so fun thing of they score in like the 85th minute, and then my liquor consumption goes from a well-paced 2 beers from that time to somehow 6, and then I'm just wandering the streets hoping that I've not made bigger mistakes than I should have, because I had to squeaky bum through 7 shots on target in the final 4 minutes, and whoever's in between the sticks stands on their head. Kelleher just does it again.
I'm going to say 4-1 with a McAllister howitzer, and I will get my Nunes hat-trick this week. Unless he gets injured. But I will get my hat-trick this week. It's going to be 4-1 Liverpool. And the one will be, I think the one will be like last minute kind of a deal. So they're going to be last minute or first minute. That's the only way it works for us. They're going to score first, or they're going to score last. But that would be mine. I'm not going to go for the Nunes hat-trick. I am going to go for the Nunes hat-trick, pardon me. I'm not going to go for the Nunes hat-trick superstar show. I think the goals will be what he gives us. The chaos will be what he gives us. And I believe McAllister will probably want to score against him. So I could see him trying something from 30 yards that goes in, and everybody explodes in happiness and joy. And then somebody has to clean up all the seats at Anfield.
Him and Soboslai are going to just take turns ripping speculative shots from 35. Just
and hitting some poor bloke in Rose Ed. In the cup. But that would be my prediction. So that's what we have time for this week. The Premier League Fantasy Show will be on immediately after us. So stay tuned for that if you are into the fantasy shows. We also have the morning coffee tomorrow morning, and then probably a pre and post match on Sunday, on Easter Sunday as well, eating our Easter eggs if you're into that kind of thing. But what we do have, if you were smart enough to follow, like, and subscribe us, we have a giveaway. We've got some merch. We have some swag, as the kids say. Well, said 10 years ago, but we're saying it now because we're cool as well. So you got to go to our Instagram or our YouTube channels. You got to like it. You got to comment. You got to say done. And if you want to have an extra entry, share with a friend. Get them to do the same. And get yourself some of that bunts. As Del Boy, or good old Arthur from Minder for us across the pond would be wants to say. But it just remains to say thank you to Trevor and thank you to Brian. Brian, I changed your name. I buffered halfway through that sentence. But thank you for joining us. And apparently Alan has got to Trevor's house for the liquor.
You'd hate the weather up here, Alan.
And he's gonna hate the lack of plants.
Yeah.
But from all of us here at American Scouser TV podcast, and make sure you're liking us on the Discord, and make sure you're liking us on all of the social medias too, because if you don't know what we're going to do, then how the hell are we going to know what to do? We have to come here every Thursday night and figure it all out for ourselves. So we need as many comments, like we had some great ones tonight, as possible. We need as many followers as possible, so that I can get fed my dinner by Timuchin. If you don't get enough followers, I don't get fed. And Timuchin gets very cruel. He just holds potatoes in front of my face and makes me cry. So let's not let that happen. Make sure you're liking and subscribing wherever it's available. So we will see everybody next Thursday, if not before, for all of our fantastic shows. But it's Thursday night. It's Holy Week, if you're into that thing. So, of course, it'd be more than appropriate, I'm sure, to say peace out. And here comes the 70s porn.